Tonight, the powerful and crippling snowstorm on the move tonight. A state of emergency declared in New York. Buffalo bracing for what could be the biggest storm in its history. Heavy snow already pummeling parts of Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Big rigs forced to pull off the road. Our team live across the storm zone tonight. And Bill Cairns standing by with the track. Also tonight, the college massacre mystery, a community desperate for answers after 4 students were brutally murdered near the University of Idaho. Chilling new surveillance video showing 2 of the victims hours before their deaths. The autopsy results just in, what the coroner is revealing about the horrific incident. End of an era. Speaker Nancy Pelosi stepping down as the Democratic leader in the House after 20 years at the helm. The chamber erupting in standing ovation as she thanked her husband Paul, who was brutally attacked in their home last month. So who will step up to take Pelosi's place? The early frontrunner tonight. Swift outrage, the Taylor Swift ticket saga just got even worse. Ticketmaster now canceling tomorrow's general sale, saying the demand is just too high and there aren't enough tickets. The reactions pouring in from fans as the pop superstar remains silent. Plus, pulled from the flames, officers racing to save a woman trapped under a burning car. The dramatic moments captured on body cam. And training horror arrest, new video showing the moment an SUV plowed into a row of recruits, injuring 25 of them. The charges that driver is now facing. Top story starts right now. And good evening. Tonight, a monster storm is brewing in the Great Lakes area. Residents there, no strangers to winter storms, but this one could be one for the record books. And right now, the bullseye is the city of Buffalo, New York. The lake effect storm may not look massive in size, but trust us, the impact is expected to be historic in scale. Residents bracing for up to 4 feet of snow, potentially the biggest storm system this city has ever seen, the city of Buffalo. Conditions already worsening in parts of Michigan and Ohio, cars skidding off the road outside of Erie, Pennsylvania. I-90, a major interstate running through New York, already shut down to commercial traffic. Drone video showing big rigs packed into a rest stop. You can see them right here. This is after they were forced to be pulled off the road, and the storm has a lot of damage left to do through tonight and into the weekend. Bill Cairns will have the full forecast straight ahead. Jesse Kirsch standing by in Buffalo live for us. But first, Maggie Vespa is also live for us in a snowy Kalamazoo, Michigan, where you can see that heavy snow is already coming down. Maggie, good evening.
Hey, Tom, good evening. Yeah, the snow started falling yesterday, and it's been falling pretty steadily since, with up to a foot forecasted here in Kalamazoo, far more farther east. As you said, in New York, the National Guard has been deployed. They're on standby, with officials pleading with people to take this seriously and be on high alert, knowing this storm is just getting started. Tonight, a paralyzing lake effect punch, leaving cars skidding and semis stuck across major swaths of the Midwest and Northeast.
Ice was probably 3 inches thick.
With feet of snow forecasted by the weekend and inches already stacking up. The system stretching from Michigan into Ohio, Pennsylvania, and parts of New York just ahead of the holidays.
I'm driving back home about an hour and a half home to Ann Arbor, and don't know what that's going to look like with all the snow on the road.
New York's I-90 so dangerous, officials banning commercial traffic. Semi-trucks now cramming into a rest stop waiting for the green light. The governor declaring a state of emergency.
Am I sounding the alarms? Yes, because I want Western New Yorkers to take this seriously.
All right, Maggie Vespa joins us now live from Kalamazoo, Michigan. Maggie, we see that snow coming down there. What are officials in the Midwest most concerned about heading into tonight?
Yeah, well, Tom, it probably won't surprise you. Definitely the roads are a top concern. I don't know if you can see the traffic behind us here. People definitely slowing down, again, as the snow has now been falling for more than 24 hours. And we've had also people asking us about holiday traffic. Will that be impacted? And the answer is, heading into next week, it doesn't look like it necessarily. But you heard that student in our piece saying that a lot of college kids are heading home for the holiday this weekend. He's slated to drive home on Sunday. And he says he's very worried about what that drive will look like, Tom.
Maggie, I'm not sure if you can see yourself, but you obviously are covered almost head to toe in snow. How long have you been out there that much snow has been able to accumulate on yourself right now?
roughly 15 minutes is the answer to that. This is heavy, thick snow that stacks almost immediately, as you can see. So, yeah, this didn't take long, for sure.
Okay, Maggie Vespa leading us off there. Maggie, get in and get warm, please. As Maggie mentioned, Buffalo, New York, going to feel the brunt of this storm. The area under a state of emergency, bracing for up to 4 feet of snow in what could be life-threatening conditions. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch joins us now from Buffalo. So, Jesse, what are conditions like there now? I'm assuming it's already freezing at this hour.
Yes, it's quite cold, Tom. I have also been standing out here for about 15 minutes, but you can see no snow has accumulated on my shoulders at this point. That is because the worst is yet to come. This is the literal calm before the storm here in Buffalo. But officials want people at this point to be off of the roads. That is the recommendation. They are asking businesses to be closed tomorrow, and public schools here in Buffalo have already been closed. And I think that's something that can resonate with a lot of people, right? We know there are snow days that are called well before the snow comes. You can see it is dry out here. It is quite cold, but there is no snow to be seen yet. But they have already, hours ago, canceled public schools here in Buffalo for tomorrow.
The snow's on the way. I guess, Jesse, what really surprised me about this storm is that our producers here at Top Story, our weather team, Bill Cairns and his team, saying that this storm was going to be maybe the biggest that has ever hit Buffalo. And I remember 2014 in that November storm, I think it was called Snowvember. It dumped about 5 to 7 feet of snow near Buffalo. We're looking at the video now, complete whiteout conditions. Are people prepared for something even bigger than that storm?
So officials are thinking about that storm from several years ago, Tom. They've explicitly asked people, reiterated, which we hear all the time, but really reiterating in context of this previous storm, to please stay off the road because they do not want people getting in the way of their plows. And they say that was an issue back in that storm years ago. And for context around that, Tom, that storm, officials say, was a snow band of 10 miles wide. This storm is expected to be at least 20 miles wide. So we're looking at something potentially to be twice as big. It has already moved the Buffalo Bills Cleveland Browns game to Detroit. They're getting out of town. People who are here are being asked to bunker down and ride this thing out at home safely.
Jesse, you may not have any snow, but we can tell how cold it is just by your ears. I have been out there on those cold live shots. Please get some earmuffs. Get inside that live truck if you have one there. Jesse Kirsch for us from Buffalo, gearing up for that big storm. More weather is on the way, so let's get right to NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns in studio. Bill, our reporter's out in the field showing us how bad this storm is.
Yeah, I wish we could check in with Jesse in an hour. Literally 1 hour, Buffalo's going to be covered in snow, and it's going to be like a whiteout condition. So this isn't your typical snowstorm. You haven't been to the Great Lakes, and you haven't seen lake effect snow. This isn't a nor'easter. It's not like a blizzard. This is like being in the way of a snow gun on a mountain if you're skiing. I mean, it's going to be like a hose of snow. It's not going to be wide. It's not going to hit everyone. But if you're in the way of it, look out. We want to avoid what happened in 2014. And by the way, that 2014 storm, the highest total was 65 inches south of Buffalo. That's where we had the National Guard out rescuing people. We had roof collapses. That's what we're hoping to avoid. But that's what they're already comparing this to. So 6 million people are included. We have lake effect snow off of all the lakes. None of them are frozen. They're all warm. Cold air over the warm lakes is going to produce snow. That's what you saw in Kalamazoo with Maggie. And then now we're going to watch the mega bands developing over Lake Erie and Ontario. And these are going to set up tonight. The wind orientation is just perfect for a very long fetch over the warm water pointing right at Buffalo and the towns to the south. You can already see the blue, the heavy snow heading that way. And there was just a lightning strike out here, too. So we're already getting thunder snow. So there's a picture of the summertime where you have like a thunderstorm. But instead of rain, it's snow. And that's going to be over the top of areas from Buffalo southwards and also near Watertown off of Lake Ontario tonight for numerous hours. And that's how you get feet of snow. And that's what we're expecting. So here's the snowfall forecast. It's kind of typical snow over Michigan. You could deal with 6 to 12 inches at most. But it's this area here from Buffalo south. And they have upped this to 48 to 60 inches. Someone is going to get that much snow. Here's 5 feet on me. Then that is going to be the highest snow total somewhere in this area. So those pictures are going to be incredible. We just want to avoid people getting stranded on the roads. And here's how it looks. This is the future radar. So this is tonight at 10 p.m. The yellow is the intense snow band. Notice how narrow it is. It may not even be snowing on some sections of I-90, but northwards, it's just coming down. And that's going to waver. It's not going to stay in the same spot. It's going to go down to the south tomorrow, and then tomorrow night it's going to come back to the north. And then on Saturday, it may drift to the south again. But when you're in it is when you're going to get the really heavy snow. And to give you a perspective, perspective on how one town can get hit and others can't, Rochester, New York, which is only about a 30, 45-minute drive from Buffalo, is only expecting 2 to 3 inches of snow, where Buffalo could end up with 3 to 4 feet.
So unfair. Bill, I do have to ask you, with all that snow, what's the temperatures like just behind this storm? Are they going to stay freezing in the Buffalo area?
It's going to stay cold, but it looks like by about Sunday, the wind direction changes, and that's what makes a difference. That'll shut off the snow machine. That's why everyone's saying Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the big travel for Thanksgiving. We should have time to clean this mess up and get everyone home safely.
Okay, we hope those forecasts are right. Okay, Bill, we thank you for that. Next tonight, we have new details from an autopsy report when it comes to the death of those 4 University of Idaho students in. This is the search for the suspect continues. Gotti Schwartz has the latest.
Tonight, more questions as investigators race to find a suspect in the gruesome murder of 4 college students in Moscow, Idaho.
It's pretty traumatic when there's 4 dead college students who have been stabbed to death in one location.
The coroner saying today autopsies have been completed and the victims suffered extensive wounds after being stabbed multiple times with a large knife. Investigators now working to determine if the victims had defensive wounds or may have gotten the suspect's DNA on their bodies.
Well, looking to see if there are some clues that are on them, some of the suspects' blood perhaps, or something under somebody's fingernails.
The coroner saying the autopsies have found the time of death sometime after 2 a.m.
Cool. Thank you.
Investigators now reviewing this video, which they say shows 2 of the victims at a food truck just hours before the murder. Police also confirmed 2 other roommates were home and unhurt at the time of the murder and are actively cooperating with the investigation.
We're not just focusing just on them, we're focusing on everybody that may be coming and going from that residence.
Authorities say there was no sign of forced entry at the home. They think this was a targeted attack and are still searching for the murder weapon.
We cannot say that there's no threat to the community.
Meanwhile, a community in mourning.
Just because there's so many people here in this area who know them and love them, and we just want to shine a light on them.
While a mass murder is still on the loose. Gotti Schwartz, NBC News.
All right, we thank Gotti for that. For more on the investigation into those mysterious killings in Idaho and to help us get a better understanding on how this is being handled by law enforcement, let's bring in Frank Figluzzi, a retired FBI assistant director and NBC News national security analyst. Frank, thanks so much for joining Top Story tonight. I want to go back to that surveillance image by the food trucks. If we can start there, I'll have our director put that up once again for our viewers so they can see that. Frank, investigators looking at this video, are they going to be trying to talk to every single person in this clip, you think?
They will indeed. For a comprehensive homicide investigation, that's what's required. In fact, I would assert they would be going a step further, which would be something called geofencing, which is to capture through the nearest cell tower the various cell phone numbers that were in that vicinity at the time and identify who those people were, go out and speak to them. The same technique will be used around the home to see if someone had repeatedly been at the home, casing the home, and particularly in the minutes preceding the murder. I want to point out, though, that the police have been criticized here, and maybe rightly, maybe not, with regard to mixed messaging. But I'll say this: 2 things can be true at the same time. It could be a targeted murder, and it could also be someone who's not closely associated. So by that I mean it could be a follow-home murder. It could be somebody who found an unlocked door and lied and lay in wait for them, or someone who's remotely associated. 2 of the girls worked at a restaurant, for example. Could be someone they waited on but would barely know. Could be someone that asked one of the women out for a date and was rejected, and the women might not even have recalled doing it. But it's something like that. Yes, targeted, but not necessarily someone who's very, very close to them. All avenues have to be kept open.
Frank, we only have a few clues here, right? But from the coroner, they think possibly it's a large knife. Possibly it happened around 2 a.m., or at least that's when they located these bodies. And then earlier in the investigation, authorities kept using the phrase crime of passion. If all of this is true, what does that tell you, if anything?
Well, they seem to have been walked back from that crime of passion. Crime of passion implies you definitely know these people, you're emotionally entangled with them, there's a personal dispute. And certainly the use of a knife, behavioral scientists will tell you, is a personal thing. It's not like shooting someone from a distance. It's very personal. But also it's very hard to kill 4 people and not get a response, not wake up roommates and neighbors. To do it very efficiently implies premeditation, planning, or some training or expertise with edged weapons. And the coroner will report back, hey, the nature of these injuries, these stabs, are professional or thought through. They went through jugular vein. There was silence. There was no way the people could scream out. That's a very different thing than a violent coming in a fight and a struggle, which, again, the police evidence text will find evidence of if it's there.
Frank, finally, the last question. We don't hear about a lot of major crimes happening out of Idaho. You have this high-profile crime. You feel for all the parents, all the friends and family of those 4 college students that were killed. Do you have faith in the police department there to handle this?
I have faith in the larger law enforcement community working together for this, because you can't expect a small town department or sheriff's office even to do this by themselves. This takes practice. Clearing homicides successfully requires working a lot of homicides. The good news is we've already heard the state police are involved. The FBI are involved. One of the parents said she's already been interviewed by the FBI. They'll help with all the computer forensics, the crime scene, the cell phone and devices. All of that can be done at the state and federal level. Also, the FBI is excellent at developing a profile of the kind of suspect they should be looking for.
Frank Figluzzi for us. Frank, we appreciate it. Next, we have an update on a story we brought you last night. The man accused of crashing into that group of law enforcement recruits has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. The suspect, 22-year-old Nicholas Joseph Gutierrez, is accused of hitting more than 24 L.A. County Sheriff Department recruits, leaving multiple people in critical condition. NBC's Nyla Charles joins us now from Los Angeles. So, Nyla, I first want to show that new video we have that some people might find disturbing to show what exactly we're talking about here. The moments leading up to the crash, you can see that the recruits all together, and then you see the aftermath there. Just absolutely horrific. We paused it. What more do we know now about the arrest of the suspect, in this case, the driver of that car?
Tom, the suspect, 22-year-old Nicholas Gutierrez, is arrested on suspicion of attempted murder on peace officers for the wrong-way crash that injured 25 L.A. County Sheriff's Academy recruits. However, Gutierrez hasn't been charged yet. The district attorney is expected to make a charging decision as early as tomorrow. Right now, he's in jail without bail. The investigation into a possible motive and cause are still under investigation. Yesterday, the sheriff said the crash appeared to be accidental. Tom?
Okay, Nyla, is there any update on the condition of the recruits?
Right now, we're told from the sheriff's office that 2 of the recruits are still in critical condition. Now, their condition so serious that the sheriff's office actually airlifted their families to them at the time of the crash. The sheriff saying that's because this could be a life-altering situation. Tom?
Okay, Nyla, we appreciate it. Thank you. Now to major news out of Washington as we turn to politics. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announcing she will step down as the top Democrat in the House. The seismic shift in leadership coming as Republicans retake the House and Democrats plan their next term as the minority. NBC News congressional correspondent Ryan Nobles has the late details.
Tonight, after losing her speaker's job following Republican wins in the House, Nancy Pelosi announcing the end of an era.
When I first came to the floor at 6 years old, never would I have thought that someday I would go from homemaker to House Speaker.
For the first time in 2 decades, she will not lead the Democratic Party in the House.
I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress. For me, the hour's come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect.
It's a historic moment. Pelosi is the first and only woman to serve as House Speaker. Today, praising 3 of the 4 presidents she worked with. No mention of former President Trump, who she once stood behind tearing up a copy of the State of the Union. Her move comes just weeks after her husband Paul was assaulted inside their San Francisco home. Today, Pelosi getting emotional, speaking about him.
For my dear husband Paul, who has been my beloved partner in life and my pillar of support, thank you.
Pelosi has been a lightning rod for Republicans for decades.
One-party Democrat rule in Washington is finished. We have fired Nancy Pelosi.
The GOP now facing the challenging job of governing with a slim majority, something Pelosi excelled at for years.
It's been my privilege to play a part in forging extraordinary progress for the American people.
Okay, Ryan Nobles joins us now live from Capitol Hill tonight. So, Ryan, with Pelosi stepping down, talk to us about the front runner.
Yeah, it seems to be Hakeem Jeffries, the congressman from New York City. He is the odds-on favorite to become the next Democratic leader. If he were to be successful in that effort, he'd be the first African-American to lead a major party in either the House or the Senate. So it would be historic in its own right. Jeffries, and he has two other individuals, Kathleen Clark of Massachusetts and Pete Aguilar of California. They seem to be the emerging next generation of leaders in Congress. So much so that James Clyburn, the current Democratic whip, who is also stepping down from his leadership post, already has said that he plans to endorse the three of them for leadership posts with this next generation of Congress, which would take over in January.
And Ryan, remind us, when do we think this will happen? When will the next, potential minority leader take over the Democratic Party?
So they would officially take the job once Congress switches hands, and that would be January 3rd, where the new Congress is sworn in. But they'll make a decision on this after Thanksgiving. The Democrats are planning their House leadership votes on January 30th. And the difference between the way the Democrats will handle this versus the Republicans, because they're in the majority, the vote will be who the leader is. There will be no subsequent vote on the floor as there is for Speaker of the House. So even though Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader, had won that vote in the private ballot amongst Republicans, he still needs to win that vote on the floor. Democrats are involved in that when it comes to Speaker of the House. That's why it's still up in the air. Democrats will know their leadership team. It could still be in doubt for Republicans.
Okay, it could be a little drama and serious politics there. Ryan, we appreciate it. With millions of fans now writing off Ticketmaster as the anti-hero, is there any way to correct this? And what could this mean for the future of online ticket sales? Joining Top Story now for an exclusive, the one, the only, Doha Mandani, the number one fan of Taylor Swift here at NBC News.
I've been a fan of her for more than half my life.
And, of course, joining us as well, CNBC entertainment reporter Sarah Whitten. Sarah, thanks for joining Top Story. I think it's your first time. I don't think we've had you on the show before, so welcome to Top Story.
It is. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, great. Doha, I'm gonna start with you. And we were talking about this while the piece was rolling. Why hasn't Taylor Swift said anything?
As a fan, I genuinely believe she's trying to figure out what to do before she says anything. As a reporter, I think she should say, hey, I'm working on something. But my Swiftie faith thinks that she's just trying to figure out a solution before she says anything at all.
This seems out of control, and this has been happening over a couple of days now. So you think you should want to get ahead of it, or at least address fans who are really upset right now?
Yeah, I think everybody knew that it was going to be bad. I think everybody knew it was going to be rough. She's broken so many records just in the last couple of weeks that we knew there were going to be a ton of fans. But we didn't anticipate, I think, the scalpers, the bots, the randomized verified fan, which wasn't a verified fan system that she's had in the past. And I think it just kind of all avalanched into a real tragic situation.
Sarah, I do want to ask you, because you know about Ticketmaster, is that fair? I mean, we've known about bots, we've known about scalpers forever, so I don't know if that's fair. Is Ticketmaster to blame here?
Well, I think it's a really tough situation. They have this verified fan program that they put in place in 2017.
But Sarah, hold on. Sarah, I just want to stop you. Sarah, I want to stop you right there. I mean, my producers were telling me this verified fan thing is like sort of a joke. You just have to send an email. You're not technically a fan. You could be anybody, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to put an email in ahead of time. It's trying to weed out the bots. Obviously, it's not a perfect system. I mean, we saw they were trying to do 1.5 million of these tickets for verified fans, and then they had 14 million people show up. So clearly not a working system for them.
So, Doha, you said there used to be a way that fans could get tickets or jump the line a little bit.
The last time she went on tour for Reputation, it was still verified fan. But the way that you secured your verified fan place in line was actually through engaging with content, through her website. Even in this verified fan presale, people like myself who pre-ordered the album on her website were given quote-unquote boosts. A lot of fans don't think those boosts actually worked. I know somebody who got an email saying, hey, we boosted you from Taylor Nation, but didn't get verified fan just a couple of days later. So when I say we didn't anticipate this, I mean we as Swifties, not like we as a society of Ticketmaster.
Sarah, talk to me about Ticketmaster, right? It doesn't have a monopoly per se, but I mean, they're the biggest in this industry, right? One of the biggest, at least. We've had this issue of bots and scalpers forever. why, with all the tech we have now, all the technology that is there to verify people, facial recognition, anything you want is really at your fingertips, why has this been so tough for Ticketmaster to figure out?
You know, I think the technology isn't there yet. I mean, there's always going to be people who are trying to buy tickets, scalp tickets. I mean, you see, you know, with this much demand for Taylor Swift, of course, people were going to try to get in on that. And, you know, with Ticketmaster, they are 70% of the ticketing market. So they are sort of the top dog in the industry with very little competition from everyone else. So, of course, people, you know, artists are going to want to go through them to get to their fan base. But it's a really tricky system right now, especially, you know, with, you know, technology and all of that. And it's really hard to verify people. I mean, I think you're seeing it across the board in the industry right now.
Still, I'm a little older than you, but I remember at the time when you go to a record store, you wait in line, try to get the Ticketmaster printer to print out your tickets, and you like run home with them. That obviously doesn't happen anymore, but at least that way worked. You had to sort of work your way into line and then get your tickets. People at home might be wondering why we're doing this story, but it's important, I think, for two reasons. One, there's clearly a problem with the way you buy concert tickets in this country. But two, there's like so many fans who live and die Taylor Swift, and it feels like they're getting screwed.
Yeah, they are. And quite frankly, touring is how a lot of artists make their money now. Taylor Swift is unique in the fact that she can still sell millions of physical albums. A lot of artists can't do that. A lot of smaller artists depend on touring for income. And now, post-COVID, that's a lot harder. Ticket prices have been going up over years. It's just been a snowball waiting to, you know.
Are you hoping that Taylor says something soon?
Yeah, I really want her to. I've been waiting.
Yeah. And then, Sarah, what do you think Ticketmaster does? Do you think they can fix this? Is there a way to fix this?
I'm not sure if there's a way to fix it this time, but maybe in the future they learn from this experience. I mean, clearly something went wrong with the pre-sales if you don't have enough tickets left over for the general public. So I think this is definitely a learning moment for them. They're really in the spotlight right now, and they're under the ire of Taylor Swift fans, which is not something you want to be under. Sarah, we thank you for joining us. Doa, thank you so much. If you guys haven't noticed, the album, the shirt, it's all there. I hope you get tickets. I really do, Doa. I hope so. Maybe Taylor will watch this segment. Still ahead tonight, baristas on strike, why thousands of Starbucks workers walked off the job on one of the busiest days of the year for the coffee chain. We'll explain. Stay with us. All right, now to top stories newsfeed, and we begin with the settlement reached between the families of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. A Florida judge awarding Petito's family $3 million after they filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Laundrie's parents. The suit alleges that the Laundries hindered the search for Petito, and they knew that their son had killed her. His family has denied those allegations. Laundrie, of course, later died by suicide. The Uvalde acting police chief who led the city's department during the deadly shooting at Robb Elementary School has finally stepped down. Lieutenant Mariano Pargas has been under fire for his department's response during that massacre that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. A spokesperson says Pargas retired effective immediately. He had been on active administrative leave since July. In Kansas, a heart-stopping rescue after a woman got trapped in a burning car. Body cam video showing officers and firefighters racing to the fiery scene in Leawood. Watch this. They pull the woman out from under the car, which had flipped over. The blaze igniting after her car struck a tree and collided with a second vehicle in that parking lot. She is expected to be okay. And more than 2,000 Starbucks workers across the country staged a day-long strike. Employees at 100 locations petitioning for better pay, more consistent schedules, and higher staffing levels in busy stores. The protest staged on Red Cup Day, when customers are given special reusable cups when ordering a holiday drink. It's typically one of the busiest days of the year. Okay, next tonight, a warning about stolen check scams. Cybersecurity experts saying criminals are stealing checks out of mailboxes or from mail carriers and then cashing fraudulent documents for big money. Gabe Gutierrez has the details.
Police say this is what check phishing looks like. A bold thief brazenly stealing envelopes from a mailbox in New York City.
When they get a check, it's a jackpot for them.
A jackpot, investigators say, because the crooks use chemicals like nail polish remover to wash away the writing on the check, replacing it with their own.
It's extremely frustrating.
Maureen McGovern says one fake check in her name almost cost her $7,000.
So this is not your handwriting?
No, it is not.
And this one, $2,700. Even though she'd only written it for $246, someone had erased her handwriting. She says she dropped the checks off at these mailboxes right outside the post office. But days later, she got a call from her bank. What went through your head?
I really couldn't imagine what was going on.
In addition to thieves grabbing envelopes from mailboxes, experts say they're also stealing keys from mail carriers.
We know that there are organized crime groups working on this issue.
David Maimon, a cybercrime researcher at Georgia State University, leads a team that has been tracking about 3,000 stolen checks per week nationwide. He estimates the money lost in the past 6 months totals between $15 and $33 million.
If your check has been stolen, you should be very active in trying to protect not only your bank account, but your identity as well.
The Postal Service recommends drop off checks inside the post office, or if you use blue collection boxes, do so before the last pickup time of the day. Never leave checks in your home mailbox overnight, and if you're out of town, put a hold on mail delivery.
It feels very intrusive and invasive to my privacy, and it's an awful lot of work to have to unravel everything that had been done to my accounts.
Maureen McGovern says she's also considering something she's resisted until now: online banking. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News, Merrick, New York.
Okay, time now for the Americas, where tonight we're getting exclusive access to a critical and dangerous operation in Colombia. American agents teaming up with the Colombian police force on a mission to stop drugs, weapons, and human trafficking before they make their way to the U.S. NBC's Julia Ainsley traveling with those agents and witnessing those tense drug busts and arrests.
Tonight in Colombia, a critical and dangerous mission. The U.S. trying to stop drugs, weapons, and migrants from reaching the southern border. We're getting an exclusive look, traveling with Americans from Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI, and the Colombian police they're training.
We're listening in on a tactical briefing between Colombian National Police, the Colombian military, and HSI from the Department of Homeland Security just before they go out to a number of high-value targets, including a narcotics manufacturing lab where they are manufacturing synthetic drugs that they say can end up in the United States.
For their safety, we are not revealing the identity of these officers. Colombian police heading out to an alleged drug cartel leader.
So, Brian, where are we going now?
So this morning we're following the Colombian National Police into a residence where they're going to arrest one individual and conduct a search warrant.
We arrive at this Medellin apartment complex. U.S. officials say synthetic drugs produced by these gang leaders were seized in Miami. 2 suspects are placed in handcuffs.
They've been going through their belongings as police look for more evidence of crimes committed in Colombia and linked to the United States.
In all, Colombian police confiscated over 650 vials of ketamine. Drug busts like these play out daily across the Americas, last year bringing thousands of pounds of narcotics every month, most of it intended for the U.S. So far this year, local authorities, with the help of the U.S., seizing more than 280,000 pounds of cocaine, along with $18.6 million and more than 300 weapons.
I'm from Bogota.
Nicolas Barrios is with the Colombian National Police.
How long had these guys been operating?
Around 2 years. They are doing too many things like smuggling, trafficking in weapons.
Brendan O'Brien is America's second highest diplomat here.
I think Colombians have seen the benefits of U.S. security cooperation. They've seen the number of murders go down. They've seen crime go down. They've seen drug seizures go up.
The next day, we're on a U.S. Black Hawk, headed to a base built by the U.S. government near the Panamanian border. These beaches on the coastal town of Necoclí being the last stop on a migrant's journey before entering the dangerous Darien Gap, an unforgiving stretch of jungle that they must cross on their way to the U.S. Officials tell us the Clan de Golfo gang controls the drug trade and profits off migrants by extorting them as they head north to the U.S.
These are leaders of a human smuggling network who have been taking migrants across Colombia into Panama, and they've been arrested here today by Colombian National Police with the help of the Americans at HSI.
The alleged cartel suspects could now face extradition to the U.S.
It's one organization that's been taken off, disrupted, dismantled. Will others pop up? Maybe, but not this one.
Julia Ainsley back in the States. She joins us now from Washington. So, Julia, in so many ways, from seeing that report there, Colombia is ground zero with both human smuggling and drug smuggling we see coming into the U.S. You embedded with these teams. I'm curious, how real is the U.S. commitment?
It's real, Tom. In fact, HSI has been operating in Colombia for 20 years, but the game has changed so much recently, especially as you've seen a new wave of migrants coming up from other countries in South America, like Venezuela, using Colombia as a bypass. And oftentimes these cartels are finding ways to profit off of both the drug trade and human trafficking. So now they are busier than ever making these arrests and trying to keep these crimes from making their way to the U.S. southern border.
So there's a clear partnership there, right? But the U.S. is not going to be there day in, day out. What did Colombian authorities tell you that they really need right now?
Well, they depend a lot on U.S. money and equipment. That military base was paid for by the United States. The Blackhawks were riding in, paid for by the United States. And they also really depend on intelligence. That's U.S. intelligence to tell them exactly where some of the drugs that they're finding in the United States may have originated in Colombia. For example, those drug smugglers were actually importing drugs from Argentina to veterinarians in Colombia, breaking it down into human form, sending it to Miami. That entire case put together by HSI, and then the Colombian National Police follow up with those arrests.
All right, Julia Ainsley from D.C. for us. Julia, we appreciate it. Time now for Top Stories Global Watch. And Russia ramping up airstrikes across Ukraine. New video shows a massive explosion after a Russian missile hit this street in Dnipro. Another strike reportedly hitting a residential building. Today's attacks leaving at least 7 dead and more than 24 injured. Russian forces targeting Ukraine's energy grid amid a string of battlefield losses. We also have an update tonight on Brittany Griner, the WNBA star, beginning her sentence after being moved to a Russian penal colony. She is serving 9 years for drug possession. The penal colony is in Mordovia, 210 miles east of Moscow. The Biden administration has been negotiating for months for her release and the release of Paul Whelan, another American detained in Russia. And in London, ground handlers at Heathrow Airport set to strike over a pay dispute. On Friday, more than 300 workers will walk out. 3 terminals at UK's busiest airport will be impacted. American Airlines is among the many international carriers expected to see disruptions. The strike comes after a summer of staff shortages and travel chaos at that airport. Okay, we want to head back to Ukraine now, where the war's youngest victims are battling serious mental and physical injuries, leaving some doctors searching for solutions. Matt Bradley is in Kyiv with one little girl learning how to walk again, just one of the countless children on the long road to recovery.
This is Kasha. That's the name Marina gave her prosthetic leg. Fitting prosthetics for children, is that a unique challenge?
It's a big challenge for a kid like her to get used to these prosthetics. That's why in the course of therapy, we made up a name for that prosthetic, and it became kind of a friend for her.
Before the war, Marina was just like any other girl in the rural Kherson region. But in May, Russian artillery landed in her living room, robbing Marina of a limb and nearly taking her life. How have you explained what happened to her and what's going to happen to her?
When she woke up after the medical coma, I was in another hospital with my wounds being treated there. She just called me and said, "Mom, you know I don't have a leg anymore?"
And what did you say?
I said, "Yes. Unfortunately, you don't have a leg anymore." She was asking me if it would grow back. And I said, "No, Marina, you don't have a leg now."
Step by step, Marina has regained her footing. But soon, she'll have to also say goodbye to Kasha. Like all 6-year-olds, Marina is growing fast, so fast, she has to practice for a new leg she's already calling Kasha 2. This is cutting-edge work. Having never seen so many maimed children, doctors here admit they're experimenting with treatments as they go along.
We didn't see that problem before the war. Now we have a lot of kids with injuries like this, and we see that we really need better prosthetic technologies for them.
But in Marina's case, the physical therapy treatment, which focuses mostly on building strength and balance, has been a clear success so far. How do you feel watching Marina walk now with that prosthetic leg?
I was told that my child would hardly be able to walk, let alone ride a bicycle or scooter. But then, step by step, I saw this rehabilitation led to some results.
Results that Marina can hopefully wear with pride as she joins an entire generation of young Ukrainians learning to walk again. Matt Bradley, NBC News, Kyiv, Ukraine.
Finally tonight, the miracle delivery and the wonderful story behind this photo. One Missouri 10-year-old stepping up and helping deliver her younger baby sister. She's now being hailed a hero. Kerry Sanders has this report.
In St. Louis County, Missouri, delivering this baby 3 weeks early took a miracle.
Fire an ambulance address of the emergency.
Hi, I think my mom is in labor.
Thankfully, an older sister, yes, named Miracle, was there to help.
She said call 911, and then I called, and then that's when she had the baby.
On the other end of that phone and with an ambulance on the way.
My head is here.
Okay, I understand that. I'm going to help you deliver the baby, okay?
Dispatcher Scott Stranghoner.
I learned pretty quick that we had a serious situation. We have a set of protocols that we follow, and she followed all of my instructions to a T and did an amazing job. And a few minutes later, we had another baby girl in the house.
At only 10 years old, Miracle kept her cool.
Is the baby breathing?
Yes, she's breathing. I think she's crying now.
Okay, all right. You're doing a really good job.
And helping Mom Viola through the whole process.
It was definitely a miracle because once I had the baby and she came out, I couldn't really grab her or pick her up or nothing. So then Miracle came and she was trying to wrap her up in a towel. She kind of rubbed her back a little bit so she can cry. So she was real helpful. I am very thankful.
By the time the ambulance arrived, baby's sister Jayla was in Miracle's arms.
Just picked baby up first thing, wrapped her in a blanket, yelled happy birthday. It was good. We love seeing good outcomes for families and stuff like that. We do see a lot of bad things, but one of these special moments is the best. This is what we do it for.
The older sister now celebrated as a hero.
Wonderful job. So we're so proud of you.
But Miracle's focus remains on that little sister in her arms.
She's really cute. She doesn't cry a lot, and I get to hold her a lot.
Kerry Sanders, NBC News.
Miracle definitely has the best name. Okay, we want to thank our affiliate in St. Louis, KSDK, for their help with that. And we thank you for watching Top Story tonight. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.